the people in China were being exploited working in the iPhone factories. And you basically laid out the same argument. And it was fascinating to watch because you said, well, they're not being forced to work there and their option might be working on a farm. And if they're working there, clearly they want to be there and clearly that's the best option. And it was an epic moment. It was a very Schiff moment.
Yeah, and I always talk to liberals because they're very generous with other people's money. They always want to say that this business should pay workers more. So, okay, well, how many people are you employing? You pay them more. If you think these people should be paid more, then you hire them. So, well, I don't have a business. Well, go start one. You can't criticize the jobs that other people are creating when you yourself haven't created any. It's so easy, to say that this other guy is doing a bad job when you're doing nothing yourself.
So you don't think there should be any minimum wage at all?
No,
none. But so someone working for $1 an hour doesn't bother you?
Well, it's better than working for zero. People think that, they want to impose their morals and say, well, it's not right for somebody to work for $1 an hour. Well, people make rational decisions, right? And so if somebody is accepting $1 an hour, and that must mean that nobody offered them $1.50, nobody offered them $2. This is a competitive market. I know you have an employee over here. Could you pay this guy $1 an hour? Would he work for you?
I don't think so.
Yeah, well, I guess because he could get more.
Right, but he's educated and skilled, and he's an actual audio engineer, and
of course,
right. But it's very difficult for people to get that sort of an education, particularly in is Puerto Rico thought of as a third world environment?
No,
it's not a country.
It's not third world. But let's say some kid came in here that had no experience whatsoever, but he wanted to learn. He wanted to just get you coffee and just sit around and be around you. He's not that productive.
Yeah, they use interns, right? A lot of radio stations do that, and they don't pay them anything.
I know that's zero. That's $0 an hour.
I can't do that.
Well, then, but maybe you pay them $5 an hour, whatever it is. But people are going to accept a job that's the best one they can get. And so, if somebody is working for $1 an hour or $2 an hour, by default, I know that they couldn't find a higher job than that. And the reason is because they don't have a lot of skills. But if you don't have a lot of skills, the best thing you can do is get a job so you can get some skills.
With military and government spending in question earlier today, I spoke with Peter Schiff. He's the CEO of Euro-Pacific Capital.
Well, this is something that I predicted right after Trump was elected, that we would have huge deficits because there would be no opposition with the Republicans in Congress. Not that the Democrats would be any better. They would probably be worse. But, what's really disingenuous about the statistics that you just read, the government has all sorts of accounting gimmicks that it likes to use when it reports the budget, because a lot of the spending, they just conveniently classify it as off budget. But if you look at the increase in the national debt during the identical fiscal year, you'll see that the real debt increased by more than $1.2 trillion.
You're assuming that they're going to get a skill. They might just be handling packages and picking them up and moving to another location, or digging a hole,
even that's like show up on time, be responsible.
So discipline.
Yeah,
there's a lot of
stuff that you learn when you have a job. But the problem with the minimum wage is that the minimum wage basically hurts the very people that it's intended to help, because the minimum wage basically says if you are a worker, if you cannot convince an employer to pay you $7.25 or $10 an hour, whatever the minimum wage is, then you cannot accept that job. See, it doesn't hurt the employer. It hurts the employee because it limits his options. It limits his ability to sell his labor for the highest price that he can get, and it limits his access to the job market. It's you can't get on that ladder. You remove the lower rungs, and so I can't climb up because of this arbitrary minimum wage. Because when you pass a minimum wage, you're not going to force an employer, right? If I'm an employer and there's a minimum wage of $10 an hour, and somebody comes to me and they can deliver $5 an hour worth of productivity, meaning if I hire that person, that will benefit me by $5 an hour. I'm not going to pay them $10 an hour because then I lose $5 an hour. The only way I'm going to hire somebody who's going to give me $5 an hour worth of productivity is if I can buy him, if I can, hire him for less than $5 an hour.
But what I think the tax cuts do is put more money into the pockets of people who are so unbelievably wealthy that they can't possibly spend all that money, and big corporations that are just going to use that money to do stock buybacks and other financial gimmicks.
Peter, it sounds like you disagree.
Well, first of all, tax cuts are not transfers of wealth. Wealth is transferred by taxation. So when you cut taxes, you're transferring less wealth, right? You're not taking money out of the pockets, or you're not putting money into the pockets of the rich. You're just taking less money out of the pockets of the rich. But the problem isn't the tax cuts. The problem is that government spending went up. It should have gone down. If you're going to make a decision to transfer less wealth, to steal less money from Peter to pay Paul, then you've got to cut your spending on Paul. But unfortunately, we didn't do that. The Republicans tried to have their cake and eat it too. They tried to transfer less wealth away from the people who earned it, but continue to give more money to people who didn't earn it. That is the problem. It is the government spending that we need to be opposed to. And government spending doesn't create economic wealth. It just transfers wealth, but in the process, it destroys it. You destroy the incentives to create wealth and to grow the economy. What we really need to be doing is shrinking the size of the federal government. We need dramatic cuts in government spending, but unfortunately, that is not what the Republicans are delivering. They are delivering more spending on welfare and on warfare, and so we have bigger deficits, and this is ultimately going to cause a massive problem. Everybody is trying to get a good deal. That's all. And of course, if you look at it from the point of view of the worker's on the opposite side. The worker wants to sell his services for the highest possible price. So if I'm a mechanic, right, and I want to go work at a station, I might interview with 5 or 10 different stations, and I'm going to say, okay, what are you going to pay me? What are you going to pay me? Right? What are the deal? Right? I'm going to take the most lucrative job offer I can get. Right? It might be a combination of wages and benefits and time off, depending on what I value. But I'm going to shop around and I'm going to sell my services to the highest bidder. So everybody is working in a free market, getting the best deal they can find. What these liberals want to do is they don't want a free market. They want the government to come in and force deals on people that are not free, right? They want to use the coercive power of government. What's fair about that? To try to force, contracts on people that they might otherwise not voluntarily enter into.